Hi everyone, welcome to the TriEssence martial art channel. Fact or Fiction, episode 3, part 2, the downfall of Yang family. So in the last part, in part 1, we discussed about Yang Banhou, Yang Jianhou, and then Yang Shaohou. And now we're going to talk about a larger portion of the content, which is Yang Chengfu, right? He is the most famous Yang family member of the third generation. And much like his father, he's the one that taught the most disciple. Well, Yang Shaohou did not take a disciple at all. So basically, he was responsible for spreading the Yang family martial art to everyone else that we can trace down to today. Okay, and he is the important figure that sort of determines why the Yang family Taichi is no longer considered a martial art by a lot of people. So like I said in the previous part, there's a very interesting coincidence where Yang Luchan's second son got short tempered, like to fight. The third son, very nice and mild, calm person who don't like to fight. And the pattern repeated itself on the third generation. The first son of Yang Jianhou died. The second son, Yang Shaohou, is like a split image of Yang Banhou, whereas Yang Chengfu is almost the same as Yang Jianhou. However, Yang Chengfu did not have Yang Luchan as his father. What that means is, okay, again, this is just the wide-known story, right? There's no evidence to really prove it physically. But what people popularly believe is that Yang Jianhou, because he'd been through the whole training and attempt for suicide, he didn't really want to push his son in the same way. And because his third son, Yang Chengfu, didn't like to fight, he lacked the motivation to train really hard. And even though he did, go to training and do the exercises, he didn't put in the same amount of effort. And that is why he was not as good as his elder brother, Yang Shaohou. Now, the popular story that a lot of people like to say is that Yang Chengfu didn't train hard, and then one day his father, Yang Jianhou, is going to pass away. And only then he realized that he lacked skill and haven't attained proper ability to actually go out and teach and accept challenges. So after his father passed away, he locked himself up in his family home in Beijing, and then he basically trained really hard on a giant pole. And he also hired people to be his sparring partner, or to be a human dummy that he would test powers on. And after 6 years of training hard every day, he finally became a highly skilled master. He came out again, went to Temple of Heaven, challenged Wu Jianquan, right, the sixth generation of Wu family. He won. He beat Wu Jianquan in a push hand, and then he finally has the confidence to restart teaching classes again and accepting challenges. Now this is a very cool story, but I don't believe it to be true. So there's a few problems with the story, right? First of all, when Yang Jianhou passed away, Yang Chengfu was already in his 30s. No, it's not like his father died when he's in his 20s. So everything that Yang Jianhou can taught him has already been taught. I don't think he actually had anything he didn't teach him. So if Yang Chengfu wasn't good, it's because of lack of training. It's not because his father died too young when he was too young and didn't have time to teach him everything. And of course, if you missed a portion of the knowledge on how to train, you can't rediscover that by yourself, by shaking poles. And furthermore, the Yang family are not known for shaking poles. I know that in modern day, right, there are some Yang family branches that claim that shaking pole is a secret to Yang family art. But I disagree. I know that there's some in Hong Kong from the it's called Yang Shouzhong's lineage. Those guys are saying, the secret to their Taichi training is to shake poles. I don't believe that, because it's not supported by any of the lineages that are found in Beijing, right? It's only them that claims that. They can't find anyone to collaborate. They claim, and let's not forget, this has always been a very good source. Is the Wu Xing Tongbei from great grandmaster Zhang Ce's lineage, because he learned from Yang Banhou and Yang Jianhou. And the lineage became independently, passed down. They never had anything to do with the Yang family. And in our lineage of Wu Xing Tongbei that carries Taichi, there's no mention of training with a pole. So I don't believe the Hong Kong claim of training with pole is actually real. It's just that, shaking pole has become almost like a magical thing in recent ages. Like when people say, I don't know how to train anymore. Like we're doing a form every day, but all feels so empty, right? Like we don't have, how do we train gong, right? Accumulation of training. How we get internal power. And shaking pole has always become like this magical thing. Like, if you shake pole, you naturally get the power. So a lot of people, they kind of blindly believe in shaking poles. I'm not saying that, shaking pole or giant spear is not beneficial, but it's not for every style, right? You can't just be, I don't know what to do in my style, so let's go shake some pole. The pole shaking is specifically for certain martial art, like Xingyi and Baji. It's entire martial art that both around the same kind of power, right? When Xingyi shake pole, they're training the same type of power they use in the 5 elemental first. And when Baji shake poles, again, they're building the same foundational force that they make use in their style. And if you look at the Yang family form, none of those movements is designed to incorporate the same kind of power you get from shaking poles. So I don't believe the Yang family ever shake poles, right? But the popular story is that Yang Chengfu shake poles. And again, it's because it's like, okay, we know Yang Chengfu didn't have any high skill ability at the time his father passed away. So how are we gonna, make him magically attendant through own training? Shaking pole, right? Because that's the magic go-to thing for people nowadays, right? In their mind, like if you miss internal power, just shake pole. That must fix it. So I believe that is how this story came about. And of course, the part where he went out after 6 years of hard training, Temple of Heaven, Pushan with Wu Jianquan. I think that is probably not real either. Their families are pretty close, right? And they're like friends. So I don't think they would do this to each other. And whoever makes up that story is actually quite nasty. I really don't like it when people make stories to emulate their own style and at the same time step down somebody else. And I'm okay if people just want to boast about themselves, their own style, like their grandmaster can fly to the moon. I don't care. But the moment they say like, my grandmaster was good because he beat your grandmaster, unless that really happened with evidence, which we don't have in this case. If he went to Temple of Heaven and did this, there must be a lot of people who've seen it. But there are no account of collaboration to what this thing actually happened. And if this thing did happen, it would ruin the Wu family, right? And which it didn't. So it must be a made-up story. So basically, that story, like I just said, has a lot of holes in it that I don't think is true. But what I do know is that Yang Chengfu was not known for fighting, okay? Because Yang Shaohou had the same reputation as his uncle, and he was also given the nickname 出手见红, meaning he always injured people when he touched hand. When he lifts his hand, they're going to be red, which means blood. It doesn't always mean blood. I mean, it can mean you hit somebody on the chest, make him cough blood, but in general, it can also just mean you're hurting people. You're not like doing friendly, right? He doesn't do friendly sparrings. And Yang Chengfu doesn't have that reputation at all. So obviously, people who clings on to their great grandmaster of being Yang Chengfu, they would argue that Yang Chengfu is a good fighter. And again, it's a he say she say scenario, just like the thing with Chen Xin. There's no evidence to support that he can fight, and there's no evidence that saying actually he can't fight. There's no one who came out and made a statement saying he can't fight. However, unlike Chen Xin, who lived in a remote small village and died there relatively unknown until he wrote a book and people came after him, kind of made him more famous. Yang Chengfu was actually an important figure in the martial art world, and he does a lot of things that people do know of. And from that, we can sort of gather the fact that he can't fight, because if he could, there would be more stories about him. Yes, and there are stories about Yang Chengfu fighting and beating famous people, except none of those are actually true. So if you speak to one of the people who belong to their lineage and try to make their great grandmaster or whatever generation they are, try to make Yang Chengfu look good, they will tell you stories. But if you really look into it, I would say they are all fabricated, right? None of those stories actually holds up. For example, one of the popular one is that Yang Chengfu defeated Sun Lutang in a closed door duel. That means only the two participants are present, and in a closed room, no audience, no witness, no nothing. Obviously, the first logical problem with this claim is that if that is the case, then how did that person know? Okay, if Yang Chengfu or whoever else enters a closed door challenge or duel or spar, and then comes out and just tell the own student, hey, just now I beat Sun Lutang. That in itself defeats the point of having a closed door deal. So the very nature of it will mean that no one else will ever hear about it. And if someone did, then that's not a closed door deal, right? Which is why, first of all, that claim is technically false. And the other thing that we can examine is that the people who make those claims, they basically hinge on the fact that Sun Lutang, we don't have him here, but Sun Lutang wanted to learn Taichi from Yang Chengfu. And Yang Chengfu pretty much refused. Not in a bad way, but he just said to him, your own martial art is really very good. You don't need to learn, my own family style. Something in that line. So the people use this to say, you see, even Sun Lutang, at his level, still wanting to learn Yang Chengfu's martial arts. That means Yang Chengfu must be better, and therefore he must have beaten him, in a closed door duel. And this is actually problematic because we all know that Yang Chengfu, Sun Lutang, he really wanted to learn Taichi, right? It's not a matter of whether Yang Chengfu is better than him or not, because we do know for a fact that later on, Sun Lutang met Hao Weizhen, right, the third generation Taichi master from the Wu Yuxiang lineage. And Hao Weizhen was actually very sick at the time, and Sun Lutang really helped him out, gave him money, hired a doctor to go and check on him, and was next to him to take care of him until he fully recovered. So Hao Weizhen was in debt to Sun Lutang and asking how he can repay him, and Sun Lutang said he wanted to learn Taichi. And actually before they became teacher and disciple, they had a minor touch hand, right, to see what level each other's at, and Hao Weizhen pretty much straight out lost to Sun Lutang. So that means at the time Sun Lutang was far superior in martial skill in combat than Hao Weizhen, yet he still kneeled down and became a disciple willingly of Hao Weizhen because he wants to learn Taichi. From this we can see that Sun Lutang has an obsession to learn Taichi. So wanting to learn from Yang Chengfu does not make it that Yang Chengfu was actually better than Sun Lutang in fighting, or not even in push hand. We don't know, right? Officially they've never touched hands, so we don't know who's better in push hand. But I most certainly don't believe Yang Chengfu beat Sun Lutang in sparring. And also, Sun Lutang being one of the top hand of the Republic era, if Yang Chengfu beat him, he would get so much more fame, and rather than what he was at that time. Not saying Yang Chengfu wasn't famous, but he wasn't famous for fighting, right? He was just famous because he is the head of the third generation Yang family. It was the family fame, and of course he has connection in politics. He has students, disciples, all of that. But he was never known for fighting. He didn't have a fighting reputation at the time. Another popular tale that people like to spin is that Yang Chengfu, again, in a closed door deal. Notice how all of these claims happen in a closed door. It's because they can't find evidence or witness to collaborate. They can only fabricate a tale when it happens in a closed door. But then they can't explain why they know about it. Alright, now another popular story that the Yang Chengfu crowd like to spin. Now I mean the Yang Chengfu crowd as in the people who really try desperately to make Yang Chengfu look good so that they themselves can look good, right? I mean, like I said, all Yang family Taichi, one way or another, trace back to Yang Chengfu. So anyone who does it is essentially part of his lineage. But not everyone is invested in the reputation of Yang Chengfu, right? So when I say Yang Chengfu crowd, I mean the one who actually really cares about making him look like he was a very good fighter. So another popular story that they like to spin is that he once defeated the founder of Wuxing Tongbei, right? My great-grandmaster of Wuxing Tongbei, Zhang Ce, in a closed door challenge or closed door deal. Now again, obviously, like we just said, the problem with the closed door deal is that no one should know about the outcome. And if somebody does, then that defeats the point, which means the story is most likely not true. And the reason they keep doing this, making story about closed door deal is because that's the only way you can explain why there's no evidence, where there's no witness, there's no record, there's no nothing. But it did happen because that's what they desperately want people to believe. So that's the first problem. The second problem, Zhang Ce, right? He is 17 years older than Yang Chengfu. Although age is not as much of an issue in internal martial arts than it is for external, meaning that even when you are at an older age, you can still fight fairly well. But the problem is, Zhang Ce studied under Yang Banhou and Yang Jianhou, right? And he most likely studied way before Yang Chengfu even started to train. What that means is he has 17 years of training above Yang Chengfu. What that means is if Yang Chengfu was in his 30s, basically he could not have defeated Zhang Ce. It's just not possible. Because the other person, Zhang Ce, has way more accumulation of training, which is very important when it comes to internal martial arts. Provided that you train correctly and you train diligently, then the amount of hours you put in per day and the amount of years you spend doing it every day non-stop makes a huge difference, right? What we call 功力, or the accumulation of training. And if Yang Chengfu was in his 40s, then they're not even in the same location, right? Great Grandmaster Zhang Ce, he went to the northeastern province, and Yang Chengfu at some point went to the south. So the time doesn't actually match either. And furthermore, because Zhang Ce was trained by the Yang family, he's actually an elder brother through Taichi of Yang Chengfu, which means he will not even accept a challenge by our traditional martial art custom. Okay, when you're part of the same family and you are the older one, you kind of have to look after the younglings. You don't accept challenges from them, and it's actually bad for people to challenge themselves among the same system, right? That's actually quite frowned upon by most people in Chinese martial art custom, especially in the old days. That's not something you do. And furthermore, now this is obviously something that I heard from the Wuxing Tongbei lineage, right? I can't confirm this, in any other source. But according to my Wuxing Tongbei master, when Yang Jianhou is toward his last days, he's about to pass away, he actually either he called Zhang Ce or he sent him a message saying that he need to look after his son Yang Chengfu once he passed away. And that's something that Zhang Ce actually took to heart. That he actually look after his little, Taichi brother, so to speak. And that's another reason why he would not actually accept a challenge from Yang Chengfu. And lastly, if you look at the actual reputation, while Yang Chengfu has a lot of reputation and influence, a lot of it comes from his family, right? The Yang family is almost like the royalty among Chinese martial arts. So that's the kind of influence he's got. But if you see the kind of position that he's acquired through his life, he's basically treated as an academic instructor, right? He was eventually invited to go to the Zhejiang Guoshu Academy or Guoshu Institute to teach Taichi over there. And before that, he was also teaching in the Beijing Sport Association. Okay, not saying that he is bad or anything, but you can see the position he gets are the one that is more academic in terms of martial art, within the martial art realm. Whereas, my great grandmaster Zhang Ce, just so you know, right, my lineage of Taichi also traced back to Yang Chengfu, so I'm not trying to be biased. I'm just, showing you the fact that I do know. Great grandmaster Zhang Ce, he was actually invited to go to the northeastern province, working under one of the biggest warlords of the Republic era called Zhang Zuolin. Okay, he's the father of Zhang Xueliang. He's the warlord. We often call him, the unofficial emperor of the northeastern province. He got a huge amount of military power. He was good at fighting wars. And he was a very smart man. Eventually, the Japanese had to assassinate him to take him out of the picture because he was opposing the Japanese invasion. And he basically hired Zhang Ce from Beijing to go and teach his son martial art and also act as his son's personal bodyguard. So as you can see, the nature of the job that these two masters get are very different. Zhang Ce's job is actually a very practical one that requires hand-on experience in conflict, whereas Yang Chengfu always gets the academic job. Right? There's another side view to see, who's likely going to win if they actually fight. But like I said, according to the Chinese traditional custom, they most likely did not fight. And this is a common problem in today's martial art world, is that people spin fabricated tales about the ancestor or the grandmaster or great grandmaster fighting another famous figure in an attempt to boost their own image. And this is not exclusive to Yang Chengfu, right? Sun Lutang's people do it a lot. They're actually very guilty of this. Yiquan people do this a lot, right? There's so many tales about Wang Xiangzhai that aren't true at all. We're gonna, at the later stage cover, the controversy surrounding Wang Xiangzhai as well. So the point is, this is a common practice and a very bad one, in my opinion, among Chinese martial artists, right? I believe elevating your own grandmaster or great grandmaster or founder doesn't make you a better practitioner, right? You should rather spend time training and talk with your hands than making up stories and hope that makes you look better. Now there's another side story that it's not exactly associated with fighting, but you can kind of see a resemblance. So it's basically that Yang Chengfu died at the age of around 53 or 54. It's fairly young for a regular person, I would say, not even martial art, right? Even for a regular man, dying at that age is pretty young. And that creates a problem among young style practitioners because, as we all know, that nowadays young style is branded as a training for longevity, for health. And it doesn't make them look good if they, great grandmaster pass away at such a young age. And of course, we all know that back in the days, young style isn't really branded for health and longevity. It was a martial art. But because of the modern ideology of it being a longevity training, a lot of these people try desperately to cover up the fact that Yang Chengfu died at that age. So instead, they made a tale up saying that Yang Chengfu was teaching in the Zhejiang Martial Institute. He was sleeping that morning, and another Black Tiger master was teaching in the courtyard. He met his student were making so much noise. Yang Chengfu woke up and he was upset. He came out and started arguing with the Black Tiger master. Eventually he said, I'll let you punch my stomach 3 times. And the guy punched him 3 times. On the third punch, Yang Chengfu spit the blood. And in retaliation, he hit the Black Tiger master once, and then he spit blood too. A few months later, both of them died. So that's just the story they're trying to spin to explain why Yang Chengfu died at a young age. And this is partially relevant because that's kind of reflect on his fighting ability. The problem with the story is that, first of all, there's no record of a Black Tiger style being taught in the Zhejiang Martial Arts Academy at the time. But of course, not all records are available, so maybe there was, but from what we can see, there's nothing like that. And secondly, it makes no sense for Yang Chengfu to ask the guy to punch me 3 times in the stomach, right? What does that even prove? You see, that is a product of modern ideology. Modern day we see some Taichi master demonstrating iron stomach, right? They get like a big tummy and they let people punch their stomach. But we can clearly see that this is not the belief of the original Yang system. It's not the belief of any of these Taichi systems, in fact. There was even, there was a text written by Sun Lutang where he explained that he initially thought having a hard stomach is like, is internal training. But later on he was being corrected by the Song family's founder, Song Shirong, right, about that, he told him that is not internal martial art. So the whole idea of Taichi having a stomach that people can punch is a modern product. It is not something that Taichi people back in the days believe in. So it makes no sense that Yang Chengfu would ask a guy to do that. And if he's upset with him for waking him up too early, he should want to punch him, not let him punch his stomach. And of course, the story needs to explain why he died young, but also don't want to make him look too bad. That's why that guy punched him 3 times, and he only hit him once, and both died. It's a kind of like a well planned out story, except that it doesn't actually fit the logics we know about the traditional martial art world. So while we're on that topic, the real reason that he died is actually, is either he ate something wrong or he caught some sickness or virus or disease. And as we should know, you can be a perfectly healthy person, but if you catch a really bad bug, with a stomach bug or whatever disease, there's a high chance that you might not make it, and it doesn't have anything to do with whether you are healthy or not, or whether you train Tai Chi or anything, right? Sickness are a matter of its own. So I do not think the fact that he died at that age, would discredit Tai Chi completely from a health exercise. But of course, I also would say you shouldn't blindly believe in the magical power of internal training to keep you healthy through any crisis, right? It doesn't work that way. Anyway, so that's like a different topic on its own. So as you can see, all these tales about Yang Chengfu beating up people are made up. What is true though is that Yang Chengfu was highly skilled at push hand. Okay, he did beat a lot of people during push hand. So I'm not saying Yang Chengfu doesn't have skill, he just doesn't have fighting record, or most likely doesn't have fighting experience, and therefore probably does not know how to fight. And that is basically the problem why young stars today are so remotely apart from fighting skill, right? It's not because they don't have understanding to structure or understanding to internal power. Some of them do. Majority of them don't, but some of them do. However, they don't have the fighting experience or knowledge on how to use what they have to fight someone. That part of knowledge is lost. Now, another claim is that the sixth generation, they had a different frame of Yang style Taichi, right? A different form. And Yang Shaohou supposedly did the small frame of Yang family, and then Yang Chengfu did a big frame because he wanted to teach people for health purpose. So it's not healthy to do everything small, so he wanted to do everything bigger so that it's healthy and easier for practitioner. And that is why Yang Chengfu and therefore people after that could not fight. I personally don't believe in that. I used to believe in it at some point, but not anymore. Right? One of the advocates of this claim is from the Wang Yongquan lineage of Taichi. So for those of you who don't know, my second grandmaster in Taichi, Shi Ming, he extends from Wang Yongquan lineage. So we don't call ourselves the Wang lineage anymore because Shi Ming got kicked out. We'll talk about that in a later episode on Shi Ming. But we essentially are part of the Wang family, essentially, right? So even then, I don't agree with their claim. So they basically saying that Wang Yongquan, basically he learned from Yang Shaohou supposedly and from Yang Chengfu, and his father learned from Yang Jianhou, and they claim that they have this form called Lao Liu Lu, the old six routine, and they claim that this is the original Yang family form, and Yang Chengfu changed the form, and therefore all the fighting skills are lost. I used to believe in this, but 3 years of training I no longer do, because what I realize is the form you do really do not matter. It is how you do the form. There's no secret technique in internal martial arts, so there's no secret technique by extension in Tai Chi. There's not a form that gives you the fighting ability, right? It's the knowledge, it's the internal power, structure, sensitivity through push hand, hit hand, striking hand, and then fighting. So it's not that you do this form you can fight, do another form you can't fight. That's completely bogus. Okay, so I believe that Yang Chengfu most likely changed the frame or the form, but everyone does. Any individual who trains will eventually customize the form to fit his own personal habit and body proportion, all of that. So I have no doubt that Yang Chengfu did change the form slightly to his own liking, but I don't believe that is what made Yang style Taichi lost its combat ability. I don't believe a secret form from Yang Shaohou is going to fix it, okay? In Taichi, you need to have the 10 principles, right? Like 沉肩坠肘, 含胸拔背, 虚灵顶. Okay, so those of you who don't know, rough translation is the hollow chest, extended back, the hip pulling up, tailbone tucking in, opening of hip, opening of shoulder, and sinking of elbow. So that, and there's like 上下相随, right? The up and down in sync, 内外相合, the in and out harmonize. So these 10 principles is what defines your Tai Chi, not how many steps you do. Okay, you can do 13, 24 moves, but if you do them properly, that's real Tai Chi. You can do 108 steps. If you don't have the 10 principles, that's not Tai Chi. Okay, so I don't believe the problem was because he changed the form. All I do believe is that he didn't like to fight and therefore did not have fighting experience. And his father, Yang Jianhou, did not like to fight either, so most likely he didn't have a lot of personal experience on fighting either. So the only person who knows how to fight is Yang Shaohou, who probably learned it from Yang Banhou in the third generation. And the problem here is Yang Shaohou and Yang Chengfu are not really in a good relationship. Now again, there are no official family statements that say they do not get along. But we can see from various hints that they do not like each other. They probably don't hate each other, but I don't think Yang Shaohou liked his younger brother much. First of all, Yang Shaohou, to the later stage of his life, we don't know exactly when, but later on, he changed his name. He was initially called Yang Zhaoxiong. That's his given name from his father. But later on, he changed it into Yang Shaohou. Shao means young. Hou is basically the family, the generation name from the second generation, right? Yang Luchan's first son is Yang Fenghou, second is Yang Banhou, third is Yang Jianhou. So basically what that means is Yang Shaohou, he considers himself part of the second generation. He don't want to be associated with his brother Yang Chengfu. That's why he changed his name to Yang Shaohou. Shao means younger, and then Hou is the given word for the second generation. Another thing that we can see is that they almost never appear in events together. You don't have any picture of those two brothers taken together in an event. You have a lot of pictures of Yang Chengfu in various events, but almost I haven't seen that picture. Maybe there is one I don't know of. Even if there is like one or two, it doesn't really mean they're in a good relationship, right? Some people even they don't like each other. If the situation demands, they'll take a photo together. But as far as I know, I haven't seen them in the same picture. But obviously this isn't really a very strong proof. But the next one sort of is. Yang Shaohou basically committed suicide at the age of 67, right? There are rumors to that. Some say that he had a challenge and he was scared to lose and therefore he killed himself. I think that's bogus because at the age of 67, you can actually refuse a challenge, especially from someone much younger. So there's no need to kill yourself because someone challenged you. You can just say, I've retired. And if you had a challenge and you killed yourself, it's the same as you lost. So it doesn't make it any better in terms of reputation. So this rumor, I believe, is false. The other rumor that I believe is most likely the truth, that he was suffering from poverty, okay? Because throughout his life, he doesn't have a job. The only thing he knows is martial art, but nobody want to learn from him because of his temper. And because of his pride, he feels that those guys who don't want to go through the hardship don't deserve his teaching or his knowledge. So that's why he couldn't make a living from teaching people, and he couldn't make a living from martial art. So he was always living in poverty, and most likely at the age of 67, he used up everything he's got, and probably even the borrowed money that he had from family friends. And that's most likely why he killed himself. He was very depressed because he has real skill, general fighting skill, but nobody appreciates him. Nobody want to learn from him. And if you stay in that kind of state for a very long period of time, you get very depressed and you tend to have a suicidal tendency. So that's most likely how he died. And if he's in a good relationship with his brother is actually quite rich. He made tons of fortune from all kinds of rich disciples. So he could have just got help from his brother, but he didn't. He's not asking for help, he killed himself. So that also kind of hints at them not having a good relationship. And if this is true, this is basically why Yang Chengfu couldn't fight, because he didn't have the knowledge, experience. He couldn't get the knowledge from his older brother because he would not show him. So just imagine, right, if we're boxing, which we know is a combat sport. Now imagine for, let's say, 60 years, right, 2 generations. No one in boxing ever sparred, never fought, never stood in the ring, never do 2-man, sparring. You know what will happen after 60 years? You still have the technique, right? You can still do jab, cross, hook, uppercut. You can still do skipping rope, do speed bag. But the knowledge of how to apply them into a fight will be lost because people will not know what is the purpose of it and how to actually put it together when somebody is throwing punches into your face. In fact, people will just do skipping rope without realizing what's the point of a skipping rope, right? Is to train your agility on your toes, or do speed bag, right? Why do you want to do speed bag? You still have the exercises, but the meaning and the reason behind the purpose will be lost. And that's probably what happened with Yang Chengfu, is that he doesn't have first-hand experience on fighting. His dad couldn't really show him too much. And when he taught people further down, of course, they even go further away from knowledge on fighting. And eventually people just don't know how Taichi should be used in a fight anymore. And that's why the whole fighting ability was completely lost. Now another theory on this is that the Yang family were quite secretive. That's also true, right? From our first episode, we talked about how Wu Yuxiang sponsored Yang Luchan to go to the Chen village for the 3rd time. And Yang Luchan came back to teach Wu Yuxiang. But after a certain amount of time, Wu Yuxiang felt something was missing and he went to Chen Changqing, later to Chen Qingping, to find out the missing part. like I said, either Wu Yixiang just didn't train enough to understand the final step, or Yang Luchan was holding back. The Yang family was quite well known for holding secret. Okay, so that part is not new. And so that it is possible that they're also holding back from the public. However, I don't think Yang Jianhou would hold back from his own son Yang Chengfu, especially the one that he gave the family business to. I don't think he will hold back from Yang Chengfu. And Yang Chengfu has no fighting record or experience. So even if he had the knowledge, so even if he want to hold back, I don't think he really has much to hold back. Okay, so maybe he did, maybe he didn't. This part we don't really know, but we do know that the Yang family do keep secrets. Xu Yusheng, right, one of the disciples of Yang Jianhou, he actually wrote that the regular people train in the outer courtyard of the Yang family mansion, so to speak. And then, but there are people who train in the inside, which are the Yang Shaohou at the time. I don't think Yang Chengfu at the time was training yet. And Zhang Ce, right, the Wuxing Tongbei founder of Wuxing Tongbei, he also was training in the inner yard. So there is a differentiation between the outer courtyard and the inner courtyard. So certain things could be held back from Yang Banhou and Yang Shaohou days. Maybe they held back the power generation secret, maybe they held back the fighting understanding or the experience, we don't know. But there are records of having two separate yards, and the common disciple trains outside. So that is highly possible, but I don't really think much of the fighting knowledge was actually transmitted to Yang Chengfu. Now, again, like I said, the people who actually use Yang Chengfu as the lineage, icon or the great grandmaster will be upset and claim that Yang Chengfu can't fight. Here's another. This is actually a real event that can be verified. Okay, I've seen this on one of the, like a photocopy of a newspaper in Republic era. So I do believe this event did happen. Basically, what happened is Yang Chengfu one day was teaching near Wenhua Gong, right? It's just outside Forbidden City. After the Republic era, that place became a public park. Yang Chengfu taught over there his public classes. And a man came by the name of Wan Laisheng. So those of you who don't know, he is one of the key figure in Ziran style. Okay, we'll talk about him in a later episode. He was very young. Wan Laisheng was around early 20s. Yang Chengfu was already kind of probably in the late 30s. So he came to Yang Chengfu and asked for push hand, and Yang Chengfu obliged. But upon pushing hand, Wan Laisheng sneak attack, or you can say sucker punch, but not punch. What he did was he was pushing hand, he grabbed Yang Chengfu's thumb and dislocated. And after that, he just kind of ran away and claimed that he defeated Yang Chengfu. So then this event escalated quite badly, and eventually Yang Chengfu's one of his disciples called Chen Weiming, he's actually a very influential figure in the social and political scene. He contacted Wan Laisheng's brother in Shanghai, elder brother, and told him this is not okay. The elder brother in Shanghai had to write a public apology letter and publish it in the Shanghai newspaper to Yang Chengfu about his brother's wrongdoing. And this newspaper, you can actually find, I've seen a photocopy of this, so I do know it to be true. And Wan Laisheng's teacher, Zhao Jinzhou, also had to, go to a restaurant, hire a table of food, and basically treat a feast, and ask Yang Chengfu and other people to come and formally apologize for his disciples' misdeed. So this event definitely did happen. Now what we to take away from this is Yang Chengfu has no experience outside push hand. Right? When somebody grabbed his thumb, he didn't know what to do. If this was his brother Yang Shaohou, he'll most likely hit the guy and hurt him really bad. But Yang Chengfu only has experience in push hand, which is why he didn't know what to do, and therefore his thumb got dislocated. Another thing, if someone sucker punched Yang Shaohou or somebody similar, they would want to get revenge. They wouldn't leave it to Chen Weiming to apply social pressure to Wan Laisheng's elder brother and his master to force an apology. He will go and kick his ass. The fact that Yang Chengfu did not do this, highly suggests that he actually was not well versed in the ability of fighting. Right. Another thing, people might argue, okay, but then, his disciples can fight, so therefore this whole thing is not true. Well, funny enough, his disciple did attempt to go to a fighting tournament. I don't know if any of them really went to the Hangzhou, Lei Tai tournament in, I think it's either 1929 or 1930. They're basically makes account on when exactly this happened. Okay, there are stories about his disciple participating in that event, but unfortunately there are no official document of the people who, of all the participants. Right, that record unfortunately is gone. A couple years ago, there was a guy in Beijing who claimed he found the record and was going to publish a book on it, but unfortunately, nothing came of it. I think people didn't want to publish it because, it's not commercial enough to make money. A very unfortunate thing. I don't know if he's still alive, he still has the record, I don't really know. But basically, but for the rest of us, we don't have a record of all the participants. But we do know that on the top 20, no one was from the Yang Chengfu's disciple, so there is no one there. And we do know for a fact that Li Yaxuan, right, one of his key top 4 disciples, we can call, he participated in the Shanghai Lei Tai tournament, which happened in 1932, I believe, and he lost. I think he lost on the first round, so he did very badly. And at the time, was actually an article on the Shanghai newspaper saying that, what happened to the legendary Taichi that can fight, right? They were referring to Yang Luchan's fame and, Yang Banhou's fame. But the actual tournament that Yang Zhengfu's disciple participated, they pretty much lost and didn't do well at all. So we can say for certain that his disciples cannot fight either. And if you think about Yang Jianhou as a generation that didn't really do much fighting, and Yang Chengfu being the same generation that didn't do fighting at all, and his disciple, the third generation, up to now we're like fourth or fifth into a generation of Taichi practitioners that have never fought and don't have the experience or knowledge on how to fight. And that is why this is such a problem in today's world in terms of Taichi's reputation. Nobody can prove Taichi can fight. You are lucky to just find someone who knows the 10 principles and know how the body structure works. And while on that note, Yang Zhengfu actually has decent body structure, right? We can see it from his old photograph. He's not like complete noob. So the people who say he has nothing, I disagree. He has body structure, he has the 10 principles. So he's not like bad in terms of structure, internal, mechanic. He's confined, he didn't know how, okay? So I don't agree that he's completely bad. It's just that he didn't know how to fight, and the knowledge of fighting was lost with Yang Shaohou and was not transmitted down to the next generation. So that pretty much covers why, Yang Luchan was such a legendary fighter, why Yang Banhou kicked ass, Yang Shaohou kicked ass, but now no one kicks ass anymore, including my own master, right? I don't hesitate to admit that my master doesn't like fighting. It's not his thing. So therefore, he did not seek on the knowledge on how to fight. He has great mechanic. If I do push hand with him, I will lose 100% of the time. I have no way to beat him yet. But I know if I do sparring, I'll probably be beaten, which is not a thing that you do in the Chinese custom. So I'm not trying to say bad things about my master, but I like to be honest with people so they know what's what. So my master can't fight, okay? But what I do is I learn mechanic from him. I try to put together the correct Taichi mechanic. And hopefully I can figure out a way to use them with my own combat knowledge and fighting experience. Now this might not be what Yang Luchan did anymore because there's no way to recover what is lost. But I'll try to make sense of what is known today and see how that fit into how to fight with it. But most of the other people out there, they basically are just repeating what Yang Chengfu taught. If you really think about it, almost everyone that's doing Yang style Taichi today trace back to Yang Chengfu, right? Even the Wang Yongquan lineage who claim they learned from Yang Shaohou, they actually, their discipleship belongs to Yang Chengfu. So no one can escape Yang Chengfu if you're doing Yang style Taichi today. There are no secret, transmission, emission, secret lineages. I don't believe in that. So this is why no one really knows how to fight with Taichi. So if you're looking to self-defense, then I would say Taichi is basically not really a good choice. If you enjoy Taichi as a martial art and like to find out more, then by all means go for it. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay, I hope this episode has made sense and you've enjoyed it. If you've got any questions, leave in the comment below. I'll get back to you. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel to keep up to date with the latest content. And if you would like to support me on Patreon, I'll be greatly appreciated. As always, I Always appreciate all my Patreon supporters. You guys rocks, and you enable me to have more time to research and make videos with better quality. So thanks so much for all my Patreon supporters and for everyone else who's watching. Hope you keep safe and social distance, all of that, right? Don't let up your guard yet. The crisis isn't over. Hang in there, have patience, and when you can, do exercise, stay healthy. And thanks for watching TriEssence martial art channel, and I will see you next time with an even more controversial topic. See you next time.